Alright, that's good. Feeling kind of here with myself. What does that mean? Living off a little, or I was confused. You're making it harder when you mean looking at you makes like harder. Is that good? Very good. Okay. Very good. Okay. That's what Alex says. Will that have Lily come babysit too? Maybe. Um, what are you going to do when I go there to babysit my first day? Anything you want to? Your mom texted me right now. What did she say? She wants to talk about potentially watching you. Mom is really nice. She will say yes. She's going to text me back tonight after work regarding the hours I can babysit you. Hold on, it's okay. There we go. You said my sister goes to your school. So yeah. I like the mom like said like, oh, I heard like your sister goes to Melanie's school. To seem more like for it to seem more credible. So yeah, that's what that's about. Yeah, I'm the decoy. Alex is in Fort Worth, and oh yeah, 100%, Jamie. Ooh, very good looking. All right. Okay, yeah. Make sure you like the stream, please. Please like the stream. Why do me and Alex post on messages? Because even though I'm the decoy and I can like text him all I want, I'm not the one. So Alex is actually for the account to set up. Looking back on the nights at the beach. Does that make sense? You and I very know I hope that my message in a bottle where can I find you amongst the stars? I thought I saw you falling from afar. I hear you somewhere singing this. Oh! I pressed exit, it didn't even let me exit. So ugly.
Hard times too, gotta show love. I had a move, checking the box and I'm cashing it too. I lost my way, but I'm back on my cool. Almost cool rap, but I'm back in the stew. Now the kid can't stay silent, they try to bring me low. Zion, it's almost time to go. Shining just like the fire to go. Trying to not be try to go. Can't be reckless, I'm on a mission to bring my folks out the grave. Ain't no setback, I had I got my pain out the way. I had to get right above it. I'm going up to the summit. I had to let it go, to a better road. I cannot carry that luggage. I could have lost my life. I almost lost my life. Lost in the dark, but I saw my growth and I got back right. Only ever crossed my sight, cause he spoke and told me where to go. I could feel the pressure start to fall. Then he broke depression off my soul. I got hope, I'm pressing toward my goals. Used to cope, confession overload. Fear imposed, relationship was cold. Now I need some more. He the only one to hear my hope.
practice.
Shout out to Hank's son, Bobby. Damn it, Bobby. Alright, here we go. She texted me about him. Oh, yeah, this is really weird. He texted. This is really gross. You're gonna see. This is, like, really disgusting. I had to talk away when she texted. She texted me out about it. A little, I was going to keep it out. Like, I said, oh, that's funny. Obviously, it's not funny. It's just very hard to maneuver your way around a chat like this. Like, I had my dick out there. So I got to be clear what you're supposed to say. I just thought that's funny. I wonder what she'll think about it. I'm just kidding. You make me laugh. That's cute. She'll probably be shocked at the signs, but so, like, this is so gross. Like, it's so nasty. He thinks this girl is 8 and he's, like, joking about having a mom, like, having
upgrading its network at a record pace. We were the first to bring 5G nationwide, and now that Sprint is a part of T-Mobile, fastest Wi-Fi to cities and towns across America, and we're adding more every week. Coverage and speed. Who says you can't have it all?
When dried-on stains appear, make them disappear with OxyClean Max Force. It saves your clothes and saves you money. We make OxyClean Max Force. You make it work. Work your magic.
Tip-off for the first regular season game of the upcoming year of NBA basketball is just 1 week away. And with it approaching so quickly, we now have a good idea of how teams will be looking going into the season. Because of which, as we have been doing in several recent videos here on the channel, it's time to get into more predictions. And instead of
Hey, and one.
boards and stuff like that, we'll now be looking at the teams as a whole, and specifically, we'll be predicting where every team will finish in the standings by conference. Today's video will focus on the teams in the Conference, and tomorrow's video will focus on the teams in the Western Conference. So look forward to that as well. Before we get started, though, it turns out about 68% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel. So please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now, with that being said, let's begin. Starting
That's
at
him.
the bottom of the standings and working our way up to the top spot, I believe the New York Knicks will be the team to finish in 15th place in the East. The Knicks were near the bottom last year, and poorly constructed the roster was, and how mismanaged their young players were, and this year, despite bringing in Tom Thibodeau to coach, I really don't see that changing. The spacing is abysmal on this team with a roster filled with poor, inefficient shooters, and as a result, it's once again difficult to improve.
Dunked all over his dumbass.
But overall, this is just a bad team. Next up in 14th place, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs are firmly in the middle of their
I do like those Phoenix Sun jerseys, though. I ain't even gonna lie. They're very clean.
Colin Sexton had a bit of a breakout year last season, putting up a triple on Island Darius Garland in similar fashion this year, and compared to who they drafted this year, he's been highly impressive on offense so far in the preseason. However, despite all of this, they are still a young, experienced team, and that usually results in a losing season.
I'm talking long haul. That's why I use triple protection holds my sweater bits.
But they are at least on the right track. Next up in 13th place in the East, we have the Detroit Pistons.
Oh, good foul.
They do still have players
Yeah.
like Griffin and Derrick Rose on the roster.
It was very clean. Purple and orange.
Traded at some point this season, and even if they don't, the roster isn't good enough to put up a fight for a playoff spot. The team did well drafting this
Ah, that's a steal. Ooh. Shit, that's probably. Damn, he dunked crazy on him. I was ready for that shit. Give me that rebound. I should have went in. Back court.
The Magic were a playoff team last year, but they really didn't do anything this offseason to improve much. They lost a few key contributors from last season, and a stagnation here will see them cast up in the defense by the few others that did good work improving. Losing Jonathan Isaac for the entire year is also a tough blow, so for that, they take a slight dip into the lottery after 2 seasons in the playoffs. Next up, in ninth place,
That's the steal. Wow, nobody switched with me. Okay. Cool. So easy, he's wide open. Like, this that bit. They got shooters out here. Goddamn, all of them have shooting takeovers.
The Wizards are adding Russell Westbrook to a very productive offensive unit with a good mix of young talent and experience.
He almost made that.
They'll be putting up really decent points with guys like Russ and Beal leading the way. But the issue is that last year they were the second worst defensive team in the whole league, and this year they really didn't do much to improve on that end. And because of that, I have them just missing out. Now, to start off the playoff teams, the 8th seed this year, I believe, will be the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks had one of the best off seasons of anyone this year, surrounding Trae Young with tons of fire.
I'm gonna change his face probably tomorrow.
On both ends of the floor. Offensively, they brought in guys like Rajon Rondo, Danilo secondary scoring and playmaking options. Defensively, they brought in guys like Chris Dunn and drafted Onyeka Okongwu, while also adding Clint Capella back to the mix, who is back healthy. They've got a ton of talent top to bottom, and should Next up, in 7th place, we have the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers' strong core of players include Malcolm Brogdon, T.J. Warren, DeMontis Sabonis, and Miles Turner, and they might not be the flashiest team in the world, but they're firmly a playoff team that can give you problems. There have been rumors of Oladipo warming out, which could cause some problems, but overall, they're a very good team. Next up, in 6th place in the East, we have the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors lost Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka this offseason, which is bound to hurt their front-court depth. And even though they added Aaron Baines to replace them, the production level just
And why?
what those two brought. Pascal Siakam is going into year 2 as the go-to guy, and Kyle Lowry is still leading the way.
Damn, I gotta upgrade his free throws. I'm tired of missing all this shit.
Slightly in the standings. Next up, in 5th place, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers had a pretty disappointing year, plagued by injuries and just poor roster construction last year.
Did I just get ripped? Money. Fuck off me.
thousands to get anything delivered. Get all your favorite local restaurants, beer and wine, groceries, and essentials delivered to your door in under an hour. Download the Favor app today and get unlimited
He shot that. He made that.
Favor.
Cameron Payne.
But this offseason, they addressed all of it and made some excellent moves to correct their mistakes.
I'm gonna do the James Harden. That's the James Harden. This is what James Harden does. That was the James Harden.
I think they could be much higher in the standings this year, but they also might take some time to get used to playing with each other before they finally click. Next up, in fourth place in the Eastern Conference, we have the Boston Celtics. The Celtics lost Gordon Hayward this year to free agency, which could hurt, and Kemba Walker isn't going to be healthy at the start of the season. But the presence of Marcus Smart helps ease the pain a good bit, and guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown should continue to improve as individuals. Depth will still be coached well and confident playing throughout the year. Up next, in third place in the East, we have the Miami Heat. The Heat just made a very impressive trip to the NBA Finals, but you have to remember that they did so as the 5th seed last year, and they're mostly bringing back a lot of the same team. So while they're still a powerhouse of the conference, they may not be the best regular season team, as they made
It's a steal.
Next up at number 2 in the East, we have the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are the one team that could absolutely boom, or they could prove to be a bust.
I should have made him miss that. That's my fault.
Roster top to bottom, with Kevin Durant coming back healthy, but they could also struggle adjusting to play together and embracing new roles.
I threw a turnover. I lost my takeover.
A title contending team when the playoffs come around. And finally, at number 1 in the Eastern Conference standings, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks finished atop the conference in each of the last 2 seasons, and now they're even better with the addition of Jrue Holiday. Giannis and his MVP production are not going anywhere. Chris Middleton is still an all-star, and the team's defense will still be top tier. And even though they came short in the playoffs last year, they'll bounce back.
They were on the first wave of superstardom. We often thought that we should play the same kind of music. Brothers, in general, very
good D.
I can't hold you to the champion after
I got blocked.
There's nothing else to say about the Beatles except they're excellent.
Happy holidays from Ashley Home Store. If you home, save up to 40% off, or get 0% interest for 5 years with 3 months payment assistance. Shop safe in our showrooms, or book an in-store or virtual appointment. Only at Ashley Home Store.
And made a ton of gains in this regular season. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you think things will shake out in the East this year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
I threw it right to him. Guess I'll watch that James Harden video. I'll watch the Paul George one actually. Oh, I gotta watch the 10 best episode of it, and then yeah, I'll watch it later. How did they come back?
Don't tag me yet.
I gotta do everything.
Paul George has quickly become one of the most criticized, disliked, and most hated figures in the NBA. Like just last week, it was announced that the Clippers were re-signing Paul George for a long-term max deal, and all the replies on Woj's tweets were just a bunch of L's and a bunch of clowning on the Clippers and having made a mistake re-signing Paul George. And I just find that crazy. I do. Because it wasn't too long ago when the idea of taking down on PG like this seemed so far-fetched. It wasn't too long ago when, if anything, PG was the golden boy of the NBA.
When are you going to bed?
Paul George is one of the most despised figures in the league. Well, today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into that as I try to explain to y'all why everyone hates Paul George. Before we get going, we'd be very appreciated if you guys can leave a like and subscribe to the channel and turn on notice. It helps this channel out a lot. It supports the content I make on here. It's time. But with that being said, let's first start off with PG's rise to NBA stardom. Because you can't be disappointed if you don't have expectations. But at that same token, there had to be a reason why you had those expectations in the first place. In a time far, far away, Paul George, like I said earlier, was actually the golden boy of the NBA. In the 2012-2013 season, he won the most improved player, averaging roughly 17 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists,
Am I?
Oh. In the playoffs, he would lead the Indiana Pacers to an Eastern Conference Finals appearance where he pushed a 66-win Miami Heat team with a nearly unanimous, almost Defensive Player of the Year, arguably the greatest player of all time, prime LeBron James, all the way to 7 games where he had this play.
I remember that play.
And this play.
Yep. Paul George was something serious on the Pacers. Skip.
And I still remember that.
I'm over here playing bad defense.
The season after, Paul George would continue his improvement across the board, and this time he would lead the Pacers to a 56-win season, which was good enough for the best record in the conference, and he ultimately led them all the way back to the Eastern Conference Finals, where the Pacers would push the Heat to another competitive 6-game series.
Why did you shoot
By the
it?
end of 2014 season, Paul George was viewed as the next man up in the NBA, and rightfully so. I mean, just think about it. From a skill set perspective, the man can create shot, he's very athletic, he is an important player, he has a smooth handle, can play make a little bit, and is one of the best wing defenders in the league already. And as a 23-year-old and just his 4th year in the league, Paul George has already won the Most Improved Player Award. He's a 2-time All-Star, has an All-NBA and
foul at.
has pushed the NBA's premier super team.
They gonna have to double team me to stop me. Don't matter if I'm playing this on the harder difficulty or not. They gonna have to double team me because I could really just score on this dude every time if I wanted to. That's off. Yeah.
That was written in March of 2014. Paul George was ranked all the way at 3, ahead of players like James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis, and a spot below Anthony days. But even if you guys don't want to take this article too seriously, and I don't blame you, the point still stands that at that time, Paul George was a player that a majority of NBA fans were rooting for and had expectations of definitively being a top 5, 8 player in this league in his prime. He was one of the good guys. And so when exactly did it change? What happened? Before we get into that, though, a quick shout out from the sponsors of this video, Manscaped. Look, man, it is the holiday season. Christmas is just next week, and I think it's time for you to give your ride or die down below a holiday gift. And the people over at Manscaped are here to help you guys in that process. Today, I'm here to present to y'all the Performance Package Kit, which comes with so many things. It's genuinely impressive. Of course, you got the new Lawnmower 3.0 waterproof trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology to prevent y'all from hurting yourselves when you're handling your business down there. And then we got the Crop Preserver and the Ball Toner, so your jewels can smell just right. And then we got the Weed Whacker Nose and Ear Hair Trimmer that I'm really a huge fan of. Then we got the Shears 2.0 kit that comes with a nail file, grooming scissors, tweezers, and a nail clipper as well that are all very high quality. And for a limited time, y'all can get 2 free gifts in this nice travel bag and a pair of anti-chafing boxers as well. Go to manscaped.com to get 20% off your order, plus free international shipping, plus these 2 free gifts I just mentioned. You can use the promo code INSERVED. Links will be in the description for that. Once again, shout out to manscaped.com for sponsoring this video. And back to the video we go. So like I was saying before, when did it all change? When did he become, for a lack of a better term, hero to villain? Well, I think we obviously can't go and do this video without mentioning his 2014 injury where, man, just look it up for yourself. I don't even want to show you this video. This injury would cause him to miss pretty much the entirety of the 2015 season, except for 6 games where he played just 15 minutes. But I don't even think this was the thing that changed the tide in terms of the Paul George narrative. The only thing it did affect was how much PG wanted to stay in Indy. Because when he came back, that Pacers squad from 2014 that won 56 games, that was together just 2 years ago, was pretty much non-existent. If anything, this injury made PG a more sympathetic figure to root for. I mean, how can you not root for a guy coming off that injury? And I would say a majority of NBA fans were very happy that Paul George would successfully come back the season after, play 81 games, and essentially continue right back where he left off in 2014. So if the narrative didn't change because of Paul George's injury, then what did? Well, I'll show y'all the clip right now.
Max is a wild one. He's a very happy baby for sure. So when we got the news that it was cancer, we were so.
Oh, yeah, I ain't heard of playoff P yet.
Yeah, I ain't met playoff P yet.
Yes, it is this moment right here where the narrative started shifting for Paul George. Because this is really the start of when Paul George started coming out and publicly setting his expectations for his own play. This interview took place going into the first round of the 2018 playoffs, where the Jazz and the Thunder were matched up in the first round, and Paul George was asked about guarding then rookie Donovan Mitchell. And he responded with,
Yeah, I ain't met playoff P yet.
So, it would only make sense, right, that as a fan, I would expect great play from one of the best two-way players in the league in his prime, playing with the reigning MVP, going up against a team who is being led by a rookie, with the Thunder having home court advantage, after Paul George just went on an interview saying that we haven't even seen the best of him yet, that the best of him will come in the playoffs. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm right in expecting that, right? I'm pretty sure most NBA fans back then were right in expecting great play from Paul George. But instead what we got is a Paul George who shoots subpar throughout the whole series. A Paul George who in Game 6, in the elimination game, scores 5 points, commits 3 fouls, and has 6 turnovers, while shooting 2 of 16. Remember, the one thing he was confident in going into the series was his defense. And in this series, he was either guarding Donovan Mitchell or Joe Ingles. And you know what Joe Ingles put up in this series? 14 points on 44, 47, 73 splits. Now that's nothing crazy. It's not like he dropped 30 points a game. But for a guy being guarded by an all-defensive defender, one of the best wing defenders in the league, playoff P, Paul George, you would expect those splits to be low. But if he wasn't guarding Joe Ingles, he was guarding mere rookie Donovan Mitchell. And you know what Donovan Mitchell put up in this series? 29 points and 7 rebounds a game on very efficient shooting splits. But let's take this a month before this series even started. Because back then, PG was asked why he was shooting under 40% from the field, coming off a 2-game stretch where he went 0 of 13 from 3. And you know what his response was? And I quote,
Why is every
"A lot of
team
that
like
has
playing?
to do with
They
weather.
lost the game yet.
Weather feels good. Body is naturally warm. Playoff time is always around when we're getting into that good weather. Sun's out. I think that's really where it stems from." Okay. The weather. It was too good. Y'all play inside. So you know what? Let's specifically look at the weather in Salt Lake City, Utah on April 27th, 2018. Game 6 of the first round when Paul George put up that dud I explained earlier. Let's take a look at it. 85 degrees. I know that isn't Los Angeles heat, but that's warm enough, even with your weather explanation. Paul George, what are we doing? And then we get into the 2018 offseason where Paul George shockingly re-signs with the Thunder and says that he is here to stay and he wants to build something special in OKC with Russell Westbrook.
I didn't want to waste any time. I wanted to give it another shot. They gave it 1 year. He played well against the best teams. I wanted to give it a real shot.
But then in the offseason after, he would immediately request a trade to go to the Clippers. But then even in his request to go to LA, he starts coming out and starts saying that he's been a Clippers fan his whole life and that this is where he's always wanted to play.
I grew up a Clippers fan.
When for all of 2017, all we heard was how much you were a Lakers fan, and that is where you always wanted to play. I mean, he said here, and here. And then we get into the 2020 season, where Paul George missed a lot of games due to the shoulder surgery he was recovering from after the 2019 season. And fortunately, due to the time off between the suspension and the bubble's return, that gave Paul George enough time to heal the surgery even more. So much so that he went on to say back in July that the shoulder injuries were no longer...
I'm playing on like 7 minutes a
In that same
game.
interview, Paul George also said this: "For this team, man, I think our aspirations, again, this time off has given us what we needed. We had some guys that were banged up, nagging injuries. The more time gave us more time for us to aid those injuries and to get back to 100. I felt our relationships within the team grew even more because everyone was contacting each other. Everybody was in touch, making sure we was pushing each other to stay ready. I think our communication, I think our chemistry has grown a lot. So, I think because of that, because of the halt in the season, it really benefited us." So for him to say this...
Internally, we've always felt this is not a championship or bust year for him.
How will we go back to work? How will we put our heads together in a space that makes us feel safe? Avoid fixed costs in a variable world? Or build a business without building an office? How do we go from what wasn't working to what will?
I think that's really the tale of the tape of the season. We just didn't have enough time together.
After the quote I just read, and after him going on Kevin Hart's little show, whatever it is, and saying this...
You get to LA. This team that you guys have, is it a get it done or bust, or is it patience within said 2 years or 3-year time?
I think immediately we expected to come in and win it all. Like we didn't have no other hey, this is gonna take a year to get used to one another.
You have no option but to look at Paul George and say that he's capping. He is capping. Also, please explain to me how the reigning Finals MVP and the guy who just finished 3rd in regular season MVP voting, joining in the same offseason with a championship-proven coach on a squad that has an all-defensive team point guard and 2 6-man of the year candidates, all being on the same team, does not have any championship aspirations. And more recently, he has made some more statements.
The way I was being used, I feel like I was, Doc was trying to play me as like a Ray Allen or like a J.J. Redick, all pin downs, all that.
To say that that's all Doc Rivers did is just a lie. Paul George, you just came off a season where you shot 10 threes a game. Matter of fact, in 3 of the 4 seasons you joining the Clippers, Paul George has shot at least 7. Yes, 7 3-pointers a game. The 1 out of 4 being a season where he averaged 6.6. And in LA, he shot 7.9. Again, nothing too out of the ordinary. As a matter of fact, if you look at his field goal attempts per game that come off of catch and shoots, Paul George went from averaging roughly 6 in his 2 years at OKC to a rounded up 5 a game on the Clippers. And this is applicable to both the regular season and in the playoffs. So, Paul George, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? The reason why Paul George is so hated is, quite frankly, Paul George is a not so much in Indiana, but ever since he joined OKC, it has been the same story every single year. We have certain expectations. He, if anything, confirms them and doubles down on them. And as soon as he underperforms or can't hold his end of the bargain, he suddenly switches the narrative to something completely different. Whether that be backtracking on claims he's made in the past or fully deflecting the blame to another player or another thing.
They got me playing center right now.
Paul George would rather point a finger at anybody else but him for his underwhelming play and inevitably the underwhelming outcome of his teams.
But he healed that for 21.
Actually blamed the weather. The weather. And if y'all like this video, leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notice. 2 videos on the screen right here. The weather.
Your next memory is out there. It might be a small one or a giant leap. Maybe it's the memory of you alone or one with him or them. It could be like magic.
They got Jabari Parker.
Just warm your heart. Your next memory is out there. It's just waiting to be made. It's a new memory. Hilton and our family in hotel.
Oh, wow.
That's why I use triple protection Old Spice sweater pants. You're gonna be much longer. This is gonna be a minute, man.
Hey basketball fans, the season is about to get started and so is this video, but before I get into today's top 10 lineups, I want to make sure you have subscribed so you don't miss a single thing during the NBA season which starts on December 22nd. So if you haven't already, go ahead and scroll down, hit that big red button and subscribe. Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell to make sure you don't miss a single video we're putting out all season long.
Wow.
Basketball fans, today we're going to get my top 10 starting lineups for the 2020-2021 NBA season. It has been a wild offseason. Anthony Davis just re-signed. We're going to talk about him later in the show a little bit. But right now, we're going to get to my top 10. Remember, this has nothing to do with the overall team. We're not talking about their bench or the depth of the team. We're talking solely about the starting fives and who I have in my top 10. So let's start off with number 10, the Phoenix Suns, who have completely revamped and changed their team this offseason as they went out and traded for Chris Paul. Now they bring in Jay Crowder, who I believe will start at power forward. But remember, all of this is a little bit subject to change throughout the year. But if Jay Crowder doesn't start, maybe it's Cam Johnson who really likes him. I am a huge fan of Mikal Bridges. In fact, I think he is very, very close to making an all-defensive team in his career. Devin Booker, of course, being the player that he is and now playing with a legitimate playmaker in Chris Paul is going to completely change that team. And in all honesty, a guy that has become completely underrated in the NBA is DeAndre Ayton because he was a #1 pick in a draft that was absolutely stacked. But he's still an 18-10 guy, and now playing with Chris Paul, he's going to benefit a ton. I've got the Suns at number 10. At number 9 is the Portland Trailblazers.
top to bottom, are really, really strong in the starting five. And I know you see Robert Covington in there because reporters come out of training camp in Portland that Carmelo Anthony will come off the bench and play their six-man role. Now, maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Melo start over Zach Collins at the 4 at times, and they go with a bigger lineup of Robert Covington, Nurkic, and Melo up in the front court with, of course, what I think is one of the best backcourts in the NBA is Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. But if we're being honest with ourselves, Robert Covington is better for this team than Melo is in the starting five.
Oh, of course. That's my steal, too.
So freaking strong. Last note here about the Blazers. Remember, they weren't healthy for much of the year last year. Now they get 100% of Yusuf Nurkic. I've got the Blazers in at number 9. Hey, some of number 9 and number 10 teams. They're not the worst teams in the NBA or the worst starting fives in the NBA. In fact, obviously, I think they're pretty darn good. So what you want to do is get down in the comment section and let me know
That's a block.
starting lineup in the entire league. Top to bottom. Don't just give me, just because they have one bad player in the lineup. No. The worst starting five in the entire NBA. Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. Who is it? Let me know in the comment section. Now let's get to the Dallas Mavericks, and I have them at number 8 right now. This team is a little bit deeper than they were just last year, but the problem that I do have with them, the reason I don't have them a little bit higher, is that center position, Dwight Powell. I don't know what we're going to get out of him this year after coming off the Achilles surgery, but the Mavs did address a lot of needs with this team by getting Josh Richardson in a trade and getting James Johnson, which you could see start as well. And another reason that they are higher than some of these other teams is their third option.
I got 2
He's a
already.
legitimate third option now in Dallas and shows that he knows how to score the ball. But everything with the Mavericks depends on Kristaps Porzingis' health. If he is healthy, this is a top 4 team in the Western Conference. If not, I don't know where they're going to fall. But when you have a top 3 MVP candidate in Luka Doncic in your lineup, who makes everybody, and I mean everybody, better around him, you immediately jump up to number 8 on my list. And if you are a Dallas Mavericks fan, oh boy, do I have good news for you. We have an All Things Mavs channel. We're talking all things Dallas Mavericks all the time. So hit that subscribe button over there if you haven't already. YouTube.com/allthingsmavs. The best Dallas Mavericks coverage on YouTube can be found at
Happy holidays.
Wow.
This week only, save up to 40% off. Or get 0% interest for 5 years with 3 months payment assistance. Shop safe in our showrooms or book an in-store or virtual appointment. Only at Ashley Home Store.
Let's go to the Western Conference team here at number 7, the Denver Nuggets. And the reason I have them a little bit above the Mavs is because I think Jamal Murray is going to take a huge step forward. I think we'll see him play somewhere between what he did in the regular season and the NBA bubble. And if that's the case, you have another all-star on your hands. Plus, Michael Porter Jr., 100% healthy. He showed enough promise. I really love him. Nikola Jokic, I think, is the best center in the NBA, and he's only going to come back in even better shape than he already was. Maybe Gary Harris starts. I could also see Will Barton slotting in there, them keeping Gary Harris as 6 man. And then Paul Millsap, obviously it's a downgrade from having Jeremy Grant in the lineup, but this team is really strong, and they have really a lot of versatility as well with a great point guard, but also their center kind of being their point guard and an offensive wing in Michael Porter Jr. Now, whoever you're a fan of, Fanatics has an awesome deal for you for their jerseys at chatsports.com/NBA jerseys, where these uniforms are up to 25% off. Go get yours today so you can rep your favorite team or your favorite player, since the season is right upon us. I'm pretty sure the preseason starts December 11th. December 11th! That's right around the corner. And if you don't have a jersey of your new favorite player on your new favorite team, you gotta go get one today at Fanatics. Chatsports.com/NBA jerseys. That's the best place to go to find all the greatest deals on all things NBA jerseys. A lot of other NBA deals available there as well. I want to mention this deal specifically for you NBA fans at chatsports.com/NBA jerseys. Let's go to my number 16, the Boston Celtics. Again, like the Dallas Mavericks, the only question I have with them is the man in the middle. Maybe it's Tristan Thompson, maybe it's Daniel Tice. And at the start of the season, they won't have any Kemba Walker until January. But the rest of the guys around that team, when you have two guys that can put up 20 points per game on a regular basis in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, plus Kemba Walker when healthy, plus who I believe is a top 3 defender in Marcus Smart, this team deserves all the recognition in the world for being a great starting 5. They're also very deep, but we're not getting into the depth today. We're only talking about that potential starting 5. And Tristan Thompson, I think you start him over Daniel Tice. I think it's an upgrade. If that's the case, when healthy, this is an elite starting 5 in Boston. Something else that is elite, though, is our Boston Celtics coverage at youtube.com/CelticsTV. Brand new channel. Go check us out. Just want to make sure you guys knew about it. I tell you about our new channels. I tell you about all these deals because I care about you guys, and I want you guys to have the best NBA coverage all season long. youtube.com/CelticsTV is where you can get that Boston coverage. Let's get to the top 5 with the Miami Heat at number 5. Goran Dragic returning. I think he returns as a starter. Tyler Hero, I believe, will be starting right off the bat. Of course, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are no-brainers. Now, they could have a little bit of variation here. Myers Leonard started most of the regular season, but he didn't start as much.
Why didn't he shoot that?
We saw more Duncan Robinson with Bam in the middle. And honestly, that works just as well. And if that's the case, you can see them even higher on this list. But I'm going to keep it 5 for right now. Maybe Eric Spoelstra plays with that starting 5 a little bit, but the team coming out of the Eastern Conference last year is only going to be just as strong. The losses of Derrick Jones Jr. and Jay Crowder definitely hurt them a little bit, but they did really well in pitching with guys like Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless. Let's go to number 4, the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean, it's not as strong as it was last year, but it's pretty darn strong. Pat Bev is still in the backcourt. He's running the point, although they'd like to upgrade the point guard position. PG, you stick him at the 2 guard with Kawhi at the 3. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard alone could get a lot of teams into the top 5 of this starting 5. And Marcus Morris, yes, hell yeah, they overpaid for him. But still puts up 17 points per game. And that's worthy of a spot in the starting 5 and a spot in my top 5 on the starting 5 lineup. Now listen, they also have a Ibaka who could start on some nights. I think Lou Williams could be inserted into the starting 5 as well. This is what I think we'll see on night 1. However, there's been a lot of turmoil in the Clippers system. So is it time for the Clippers to blow it up? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I think they're going to ride out this year and then have some real shakeups in that starting 5 and watch Kawhi Leonard just waltz his way out of another city in Los Angeles and head who knows where else this next time. Plus, Pandemic P, I don't know if we want him bringing stuff around in Los Angeles, but let me know what you guys think. Is it time for the Clippers to blow it up? Yes or no? Let's get to my number 3 team, the Milwaukee Bucks. And honestly, I kind of wanted to put this team higher just because I'm really, really loving the addition of Drew Holiday, but I think 3 is more than adequate for this team. They have to take a little step back with Dante DiVincenzo probably starting at the 2 guard, but this could be a year where he takes a little bit of a leap, and maybe it's not so much a step back.
There you go, Jokic. I don't know why he wasn't playing.
And now in the Eastern Conference, I think we can see Drew Holiday get a All-Star nod as well. That team is super, super strong. I still love what Phil Wilson.
That's a steal.
Bogdanovich trade falling through hurt them a little bit, but all in all, that Milwaukee Bucks team is so well-rounded, and a team that was already good on defense got even better by upgrading from Eric Bledsoe to Drew Holiday. So yeah, I'm high on the Milwaukee Bucks, and I think this is a top 3 team, top 3 starting lineup in the NBA. At number 2, some new faces in a new place. The Brooklyn Nets have Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. They bring back Joe Harris. I think Jarrett Allen needs to be the starting center. Forget about DeAndre Jordan. He's old. He's washed. And Karis LeVert in at the 2 guard position, who took a huge step forward as a playmaker inside the NBA bubble. Now, the reason they're at 2 is simply because KD and Kyrie are incredible, and they have incredible, complementary players around them in Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, and Jarrett Allen. But so much of this and so much of the starting lineup depends very heavily on their health. And if they are not healthy, not at least, 75% healthy, they could take a huge dip backwards. But in all in all, this is a strong team. Now, you've seen 10 all the way down to 2. You haven't seen the number 1 team. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm not sure you're truly an NBA fan, or maybe you're just not subscribed to the channel, whatever it may be. But whoever you think I have at number 1, whoever you would have at number 1, let me know in the comment section. Who has the best starting lineup in the NBA? And of course, at number 1, it's the NBA champions that only got better. 2 top 5, top 6 players, however you want to spin it, in the NBA in one lineup was already good enough. And then you go out and get the runner-up for 6th Man of the Year in Dennis Schroeder. And you get one of the best passing big men of all time in Marc Gasol starting the game. And you bring back Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. These lineups have nothing to do with their depth, but this team is just as deep on the bench as they are in the starting lineup. Dennis Schroeder wants to be a starting guard. Maybe he won't start. I think he should. And if you start him at the guard position, you're sitting pretty with him, LeBron, and AD as your top 3 scorers. KCP and Marc Gasol also playing as complementary players. That Lakers team is stacked. And if you want to know a little bit more about the Los Angeles Lakers and what their season is going to look like, this link right here is going to tell you all you need to know. YouTube.com/LakersTV. Make sure you subscribe where you can get even more of my Lakers coverage on a regular basis. But good Lord, that Lakers team is strong, and they're only getting stronger. Now, they can also switch things up, too, right? Maybe you see him start some nights. Maybe you see Wesley Matthews start some nights. Maybe Kyle Kuzma takes that next step. I'm not sure. But whatever it is, if LeBron and AD are in the starting 5, that's the best lineup in the NBA. And as long as they're healthy, that's all that matters. You saw all of my picks. You saw my entire list. I revealed it all to you. So let me know, what team am I too high on? Or what teams is Hater Jimmy hating a bit too much on? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you next time.
If you are still hoping to make more money, invest smarter with Ally's intuitive investing platform for all things money. Thank you for calling Ally.
Okay.
At any rate, I clock at the result. Total molecular dissipation.
This video took far longer than it should have, for reasons that I'm not particularly interested in getting into right now. But it's finally done. It's finally here, and we're finally going to get into this. After this, I can leave Ed, Edd n Eddy behind for a
Let's
while.
go.
I said some harsh things about this show in my top 10 worst episodes list, or at least aspects about it, like the cankers. So let me be absolutely clear here. I love Ed, Edd n Eddy. Of the 14 cartoons, Courage the Cowardly Dog was my favorite, but Ed, Edd n Eddy was definitely the runner-up. And that is some stiff competition. There were a dozen shows in that repertoire, almost all of them being classics. Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, Codename Kids Next Door, and over all of them, I would have picked Ed, Edd n Eddy. Yeah, that's right, it's the most controversial opinion ever. I would have watched Ed, Edd n Eddy over Mike Lewinog any day of the week. I don't know if this is still true, but at one point, this show was the longest-running Cartoon Network show, with technically 6 seasons in a movie. I could go on and on with a lengthy interlude here, talk about the characters being memorable or how it made my childhood days a little bit brighter. But let's be honest, Ed, Edd n Eddy was just a funny show, and that's why we liked it. It could be creative, wild, wacky, and surreal, but more often than not, it was just out there to make you laugh. And there's nothing wrong with that. And since this review has taken so long, I think it would be very wise to get into it without any more further ado and delay. I'm pretty sure you guys would appreciate that. So, let's get into it. This is top 10 episodes of Ed, Edd n Eddy.
Best friend. T-Mobile is upgrading its network at a record pace. We were the first to bring 5G nationwide. And now that Sprint is a part of T-Mobile, we're turning up the speed. Upgrading over 1,000 towers a month with ultra-capacity 5G to bring speeds as fast as Wi-Fi to cities and towns across America. And we're adding more every week. Coverage and speed. Who says you can't have it all?
Season is kind of like its own entity. It's a living, breathing thing. And coming out of Road America into VIR, I felt like the momentum really swung strongly in our favor. And this year, I feel like really all the callers
Green.
have strength in different places. And the driver pairings worked out really, really well. So it's one of the things I'm really most happy about.
I'm shooting like Steph Curry.
Let's start with something familiar. The day the Ed stood still. I talked about this one a few years back. Actually, at this point, it's getting to be like half a decade.
We're beating about 26
scares
now.
me. But
Can
anyway,
I
I talked
send
about
this?
this one back during a previous Halloween special.
Nope.
In the top 25 most disturbing episodes from kids' cartoons. I was almost considering making this list kind of like a Halloween special because this episode is on the list, as I am writing this entry before Halloween. But after a couple of battles with an inconsolable depression, some sore throats, and a bunch of existential dread, I'm fairly sure that this video is going to be coming
No,
out
I wasn't making that one.
You know, things go as planned this time. It's really weird. When it comes to holiday specials of Ed, Edd n Eddy, you're usually better off watching an episode that's not one of their holiday specials. I compared Fa La La Ed to Jingle Jingle Jangle a while back, and it's like the latter not being made to be a Christmas special and having a ton of effort trying doing both the holiday feeling.
Shot, Murray.
Comes off as a much
There you
better
go.
Christmas special.
Sniper's out.
When it comes to Halloween, the effect is even greater. You don't watch Boo Ha Ha if you want to have a good time watching
Oh,
Ed.
good D,
You
good
watch
D.
The Day the Ed Stood Still. There are a few good episodes of Ed, Edd n Eddy that go for more of a
That's 3.
horror aesthetic. After all, being into monsters and science fiction is one of Ed's main character traits, so it's going to come up once in a while, and it's almost always a treat. In fact, I actually had a hard time picking which of these episodes was the best. There was the R-rated movie episode, which was one of the standout gems from the first season, and there was the episode with Ed's scam that ended up being some kind of a cult curse that he found in a comic book. And then there's the Alien special, of course, which let the series off.
Why am I missing so
lot.
much?
But with all of them, The Day the Ed Stood Still holds the crown, I think. This episode invokes that feeling of a classic monster movie. In it, Ed dons a monster costume, and he goes completely native. This is probably sound weird, but it is a joy to just see everyone freaking out throughout the entire episode. It's one of the episodes that actually has the best overall atmosphere. You really get that horror feel, although, no, I wouldn't actually call this episode scary, obviously. It just follows
Oh
the
my
formula.
God, I'm missing so
So,
many
I guess the
threes.
question is, why is it so low on this list? Beyond the ending being a touch too gross for my tastes, it's not what I call the funniest episode of the series. Nowhere near it, actually. And this is going to be a bit of a pattern on the lower end of my list. Ed, Edd n Eddy is primarily a comedy show, but what I look for in cartoons, or any stories really, is the story. Or at the very least, I like interesting concepts. Ed, Edd n Eddy has quite a lot of them, and you'd expect to see many of them on this list, but unfortunately most of them tend to be lighter on the funny. Once in a while, though, the show does both, and it's delightful to see, as we will be getting into later on in the list.
Best friend. He is going home. She's staying here. Hulu's got favorites to match this strange fear. Whatever you're watching, find joy in the season. Deck the halls, y'all. Hulu has whatever.
Really well done.
You made that.
This episode has all the kids they call the sack.
Damn, they gonna replay that? They ain't gonna replay it. They ain't gonna replay that one.
Do I have to elaborate any more on why I like this episode? It's the most enjoyable shit I've ever seen. Alright, I'll give us from the full rundown. The season 1 of The Ed wasn't all that great. It took them to season 2 to really nail down their style of humor. And so, the first season was plagued by very awkward animation, characters that weren't very well developed, more stilted humor, and an over-reliance of using the cankers to end the plot. However, I didn't want to leave the first season off my list entirely, because there was a charm to it. There was always a charm to the awkward inexperience of the show that eventually becomes good. It's not like season 1 was bad, just just not great. But even in the awkward freshman year of the Eds, there were a couple of gems. And I do mean a couple, like 3. I consider the hypnosis episode because I am a
That's off.
hypnosis bots and how they could immediately change the character dynamic. Unfortunately, the episode ends with God Mode Cankers, so I had to disqualify it from this list. And no, I'm not joking on that. It would be on this list if the Cankers didn't end that plot. So my other 2 choices were Dawn of the Eds. You know, the episode where the Eds are all trying to get into an R-rated movie. And they get sidetracked from the junkyard where they have adventure entirely in your imagination. It was definitely a charming episode in and of itself, but in the end, Laugh at Laugh is just funnier. And let me be very clear and show that this is actually beyond all irony, and I'm not just doing this to be whatever. I actually made my selections for my favorite and least favorite episodes like last year, in 2019. That is when these videos were originally supposed to come out before I got sidetracked. Kind of thinking now that I'm glad that I didn't pick that episode where the Eds broke the sky, because I don't want to know what kind of world it would be if I chose that one. There really isn't much that I can say, though, about this episode. Eddie's mental break is just funny. Surprisingly or not, it's rare when one of the Eds just goes completely off the deep end. The only other time I can think is Edliness is next to cleanliness, but you all know how I feel about that episode. This one works a lot better because, well, Eddie is going crazy because there's no kids to scam, and that's not exactly something he should be doing. Talking about how much I like this episode, Devin was talking about jokes, which I don't want to do. Most people have seen it, and would probably ruin the episode for those who haven't seen it. But I can tell you what my favorite joke is. And that's when Eddie is so far gone that he ends up gambling with the squirrels. I don't know why, but that one just hits the spot, especially when Eddie shoves all of his winnings in his mouth. Despite having a tenuous relationship with reality, Ed and Eddie rarely got this absurd, but I kind of wish they did more, because every single time it went for broke, it really, really did work. And yes, if you're wondering, over the course of 2020, I felt a lot more from this episode over the course of the year.
I'm about to foul out.
If you go crazy, this might be the episode to watch. But watch WALL-E first, because it's clear to me that not enough people have seen WALL-E.
Best friend, my best friend,
Oh, I'm hitting now.
my best friend.
I got 11 threes.
Oh boy, what can I say about the Boomerang episode? It's perhaps one of the most memorable episodes of the entire series, although I feel like I'm saying that a lot in this video. This one is definitely up there in popularity, and it's a type of episode that really scratches my fancy. I like episodes that change up character dynamics a lot. It's why I'm a big fan of body swap episodes, but other types of this kind of thing work really well too.
12.
Like personality swap, or even general role reversals. If you couldn't tell by the creative tools that I work on, it's really hard to explain why I like them so much. Seeing characters act completely differently is, I don't want to say funny, but it just always seems it's like they are. It changes what the show can be at this part episode. Although in this case, it isn't really an introspective showcase. It's just funny to see Jimmy become Muscle Man temporarily, and very, very satisfying to see Kevin get crushed by a mailbox. When it came to personality swap type episodes, I did have 2 choices here. It was either this one or the Truth or Dare episode, and quite honestly, it was a hard as hell choice between the 2. Yeah, I know I could have put them both on my list, but I feel that it would be making for a far less interesting video if I was talking about the same type of episode again and again. Consider them a tie if you want, but then liking this one a little bit more. I have no idea why I was so harsh on the mystical elements in my Sorry Wrong End review, because in all honesty, except that one case, whenever mystical elements did sneak their way into the show, it gave things a unique flavor. I don't know why it's a Boomerang of all things that changes up the personality of everyone. I don't know any symbolism or mythology that would make you consider that a boomerang, even a magical one, would have that power. But hey, it's all the more unique for breaking conventions. I think one of the reasons that I do like this episode more than Truth or Dare
Thank
episodes
God I
is
didn't play the
characters
fourth
are
quarter.
changed against their will, and that allows them to go a lot farther than they would have otherwise. In the Truth or Dare episode, they were at least in on it for the most part. In this one, nope, the boomerang changes you and you don't get a say. Hell, only Rolf seems to even notice the difference. It makes it a lot funnier for reasons that I can't entirely explain. Although I can see a version of this episode where the kids seek out the boomerang.
Just feeling it out there. Yeah, got into a rhythm early. It's just one of them nights. Did you feel like you couldn't miss out though? Most definitely. Easy. I wanted it every possession.
We won. Get the fuck off the game. God damn.
Hey, two-step no. This that bop like Diddy. Oh yeah, sitting pretty. Realest in the city. Two-step no. This that bop like Diddy. Oh yeah, sitting pretty. Still a realest in the city. Smash, dash, get back, get dope, get cash. Told me, they called him. I spit that, tryna pull up. What's that? Got a street mile, no tag. When my hair wild, it's no cap. They quiet, we make moves like a church choir. Disrespecting over cash flow. Used to get it from the bed, like that Rambo. Now I'm ballin' like Rondo. Wait, more racks like the Kenway. Still rapping since 10 days. Know you wish I could get in me. I love all of my enemies. Hate my bro, you boy. Never tried, never will I tell a lie. Still, I'm the king of my time. Two-step no. This that bop like Diddy. Oh yeah, sitting pretty. Realest in the city. Two-step no. This that bop like Diddy. Oh yeah, sitting pretty. Still a realest in the city.
Alright, I'm off.